Okay, so today we're going to do a deep dive into something pretty important for all you hotel and restaurant owners out there, and that's picking the right location for your business.
Yeah, you can't overstate how important that is, right? I mean, you can have the best food in the world, but if nobody can find you or if you're in the wrong spot, it doesn't matter how good the food is, you know?
It's almost like the seasoning you put on a dish, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's a great analogy, actually. And we're going to get all these great insights today from Maurice, who knows a lot about the restaurant business and food and beverage in the hospitality sector.
Yeah, Maurice is a hospitality pro. He really knows his stuff. So uh, we're going to try to unpack all the best stuff from Maurice in this episode and give you guys a kind of framework, to make those decisions about location a little bit easier. So let's just dive right in, I guess. So Maurice says the first thing you got to do is think about your concept and who you're trying to reach. Like, what kind of customer are you after?
Yeah, and I think what's interesting there is he doesn't just say, you know, who are your customers, but also where are they? Like what part of town, what are their habits?
Hmm.
You know, are they the kind of people who are going to be driving by on a busy street? Are they the kind of people who are looking for something a little bit more off the beaten path?
Yeah, like I'm thinking about an example he gives of San Francisco's Mission District.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's a hot spot for sure, but it's also expensive, right?
Yeah.
So you got to weigh those
You got to
things.
weigh those things carefully.
Yeah.
And, are you going to get the traffic? You need to justify the cost of being there.
And that's where that market research comes in that Maurice talks about. You got to really understand your target customer inside and out. Like, what do they do for a living? Where do they hang out? What are their spending habits? You got to get granular.
Yeah, you got to really dig deep. And it's not just about who is there, but also who else is there.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
like, how much competition are you going to face?
Yeah. Maurice talks about that being a double-edged sword, right? Like, a busy neighborhood means lots of potential customers, but it also means lots of other restaurants vying for their attention. So you got to think about what makes you different, what makes you stand out from the crowd.
That's a unique angle, right?
Exactly. And that all ties back to your overall business strategy, Maurice says. Like, you can't just pick a location based on gut feeling. It has to be a strategic decision that aligns with your concept, your target market, and your long-term goals.
Yeah, you got to be smart about it. And he also warns against letting emotions cloud your judgment when you're looking at potential locations.
Yeah, that charming little storefront might look great, but you got to step back and look at it objectively.
I'll get the numbers.
Exactly. And Maurice talks about being patient too. He gives the example of this restaurateur, Danny Sterling, in Dobbs Ferry, who waited months for the perfect spot.
Wow, so he just didn't jump at the first available space, huh?
Nope, he had a plan and he stuck to it. And that's what Maurice recommends, having a clear vision of what you want and being willing to wait for the right opportunity.
I like that.
Mm.
So once you've got some potential spots in mind, what's next?
Due diligence, my friend. Maurice says you got to do your homework, look into the history of the site, what kind of businesses were there before. Did they succeed? Did they fail? Why?
Yeah, you got to learn from others' mistakes, right?
Absolutely. And also look at the surrounding businesses. What's the foot traffic like? Are there any complementary sources nearby that might draw in your target customer?
Yeah, like maybe a bookstore next to a coffee shop or something.
Exactly. And don't forget about the lease. Maurice says you got to be prepared to negotiate. Don't be afraid to ask for what you want and make sure you understand all the terms and conditions before you sign anything.
It's all about protecting yourself, right?
Right. Now, we've been talking about those prime, high traffic locations, but Maurice also points out that you don't always have to be in the most expensive spot to succeed. Sometimes a less obvious location can be a huge advantage, especially if you've got a strong concept.
Yeah, he gives that example of Zuni Restaurant in New York.
Right. Zuni's in a kind of up-and-coming neighborhood, not super fancy, but they've got this amazing roast chicken that people rave about. And because their rent is lower, they can keep their prices reasonable, and they've built this loyal following.
So it's about finding those hidden gems, those neighborhoods that are on the rise.
Exactly. And that's where your unique selling proposition, or USP, comes in. If you've got something truly special that sets you apart from the competition, you can attract customers even if you're not in the most obvious location.
It's about creating a destination.
Yeah, like think about those restaurants that are way out in the middle of nowhere, but people drive for miles just to eat there.
Because they know it's going to be worth it.
Exactly. And that brings us to those spots that seem like sure things like shopping malls and restaurant clusters.
Yeah, lots of foot traffic, right? What could go wrong?
Well, Maurice says you got to be careful there. The competition can be intense, and there are often hidden costs that you might not think about at first.
Like what kind of hidden costs?
Things like maintenance fees, revenue sharing agreements with the mall, or contributions to joint advertising campaigns. These things can add up quickly and eat into your profits.
Yeah. And none about that.
And also think about accessibility for your customers. Is it easy to find your restaurant within the mall? Is there convenient parking? These things matter, especially if you're targeting a specific demographic like families with young children.
Makes sense. So what about those restaurants that are kind of off the beaten path but still manage to draw huge crowds?
Ah, those are the destination restaurants Maurice talks about. They're not relying on foot traffic, they're creating their own buzz.
Like that River Cafe in Brooklyn.
Yeah, amazing views of Manhattan,
Oh,
right?
I...
People go there for the experience as much as the food.
So if your location has something special to offer, whether it's a view, a historic building, a unique atmosphere, Marie says, play that up and make it part of your brand.
And don't be afraid to invest in marketing. Get the word out. Let people know what you've got. Social media, press coverage, word of mouth, it all helps.
You got to create that buzz. All right, before we wrap up, Maurice has some really important advice about due diligence.
Yeah, he says don't skip the boring stuff. Make sure you thoroughly check out the utilities and zoning regulations before you sign any lease.
Why is that so important?
Because you don't want to get stuck with a space that can't meet your needs or that isn't even zoned for a restaurant.
Oh man, that would be a nightmare.
It happens more than you think. So Maurice says check the water supply, the electrical capacity, the ventilation system, and make sure the zoning allows for a restaurant at that location.
Better safe than sorry, right?
Absolutely.
That
All right,
helps.
last but not least, let's talk about visibility and accessibility.
It seems obvious, but you'd be surprised how many restaurants kind of blend into the background.
Maurice says you got to make it easy for people to find you. Clear signage, good lighting, a prominent location, these things make a difference.
And what about parking?
Huge factor, especially in urban areas. If people can't find a place to park, they're going to go somewhere else.
So valet parking or a partnership with a nearby garage?
Could be good options. Marie says you got to analyze the traffic patterns in the area, both pedestrian and vehicular. When are the busy times? Are there enough parking spaces available?
You got to think about all those little details. So as we wrap up this deep dive into Maurice's wisdom, I think the big takeaway is that finding the perfect location is a mix of art and science.
Yeah, you need to do your research. Be strategic, but also trust your gut.
And remember, every location has potential. It's up to you to make the most of it.
And with a little bit of creativity and a lot of hard work, you can turn any spot into a thriving business.
Absolutely. Now, Maurice leaves us with a question to ponder. What do you consider the single most important factor when choosing a location? It's something to think about as you embark on your own restaurant journey.
It's a good question. Lots of things to consider, but ultimately it's about finding the right fit for you, your concept, and your customers.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.